Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Debate Night. We are back yet again. Some great guests tonight and some great topics to go over as well. So without further ado, let's hop right into this thing. Brodie Smith is in the building.
Yeah, I'm back in Dallas after a fun few days with you guys out in Nashville. Good week out there. Glad the tournament actually got done. Glad no tornadoes got in the way for us, at least. It just messed up our sleep a little bit. But last week, looking at it, man, of the people back here, top comments. Clearly, Hunter was the MVP tonight. When things got heated, we heard nothing from him. Truly the people's champion. So,
Was I even on last week?
I think I
don't think I was on,
even
yeah.
when you're not on the show.
That's funny.
Well, apparently not, because there's no people's champ voting. So
unfortunately, Dustin and Ross are not here for this comment. Brodie's point about the age gap was spot on. Dustin has points with the total accolades, but the point that Kristen and Paige are the same age really is being overlooked. They were genuinely acting as though Kristen is 22 and Paige is 40. Let me just remind everyone, Kristen is 1 year younger than Paige. I don't even actually know how many months it is. It might even be like, you could be like, in one of those birthdays where it's like bing, bing.
At this point, disc golfer ages are so confusing. We might have to drop a T-shirt that instead of tour dates on the back of it, it's disc golf players and their ages and the year that it was like it has. So like we have a reference.
Should we instead just start a narrative and just try to use SEO to rank search results higher and make players whatever age we want them to be?
That's a good point. Maybe that's a debate night talk. Like what age can we leverage the most? I mean, I think we're going to keep Gannon Buhr 19, which. Funny enough, I literally like in person did the thing where I was like, I saw him and I was like, "You're 20 now, right?" Like, no, 19. I'm like, okay, still misfiring on that.
That's a Jason Tatum treatment.
Yeah,
he's 19 forever.
Exactly. He's
only getting better.
He's only 19. Yeah. Hunter is here. He's back.
I've arrived. I'm here. I'm excited. A little sad that the Instagram poll apparently died. I'm hoping to see that back again today.
It's never coming back.
I'm
going to try the YouTube community, though. I'm going to try that. That was a good idea.
YouTube community is the future.
YouTube community. All right.
Yeah, I heard that's the next big social media platform. It's going to blow up.
It's like in the Office when they're like the pyramid. It's the future because it's the past. That's what it feels like. YouTube community. It's the future because it's the past.
Google Plus was wild when you got
18 to make an account.
No, I'm saying like when they first started it, they really were pushing like the creators that came over. I think I gained like 500,000 followers in the first week. And like everything you posted was just getting millions and millions of views. And then like 6 months later, no one was using it.
Yeah, it was
I was on
quick.
Google Plus for a little bit there. It's a good time.
It was hot fire though for a very short period.
I'd love to watch a documentary on Google Plus, Rise and Fall. PTJ Mike back in the building.
Yeah, good to be back. We'll talk about it later, but I used to only have to deal with people talking about their bad breaks while they played disc golf, but now all I'm hearing is all the bad breaks in their betting. So, one more way for people to complain. So I'm trying to avoid that. But yeah, good questions. Excited to be on the show today.
Yeah, doubled up. And then Jake, our West Coast friend, is here.
I am back. Yeah, Look, I was going over Statmando earlier, and I'm glad there's no Statmando for debate night because my stats would be buns right now. So I'm coming out this season just trying to pull a Niklas and just surprise people out the gate. My first week was not great on this show. I thought it was great, but apparently you guys didn't. So I'm hoping to redeem myself this week. We'll see what happens.
YouTube community.
Yeah, YouTube come through for me. Comments liked me last time. Comments liked me.
That's all that matters. I'm just one person with dumb opinions. Just ask Jason. Anyways, all right. That's a very deep inside joke there. All right, we're gonna get into our first topic here. So Niklas Anttila slayed the McBeast in an epic final round at MCO to grab back-to-back victories on tour. Is it fair to say he's replaced Gannon Buhr as the most dangerous player on tour, or is Gannon still safely your week-to-week favorite going forward? Just a few months ago, it seemed crazy to think any player could have a more imposing presence than Gannon on tour, but Niklas has come out the gates red hot. Brodie, what do you think?
I love disc golf because I think it has such a similarity to the UFC and how short-sighted people or like quick recency bias it is. Now, in the UFC, it does make a little bit more sense because fighters, if you're super active in the UFC, you might only fight 3 times a whole year. So there might be gaps of 4 months where you just don't even see a guy fight. And so it's quick to forget, like, oh, wait, this guy exists. And I think it shouldn't happen as often in disc golf because we are seeing these guys week in, week out. But it happens just as much in disc golf as it does in the UFC. And I love it. I love how one tournament happens and then everyone just gets flipped on their head and is like, oh my goodness. Like, if you really look at it, yes, is Niklas the most dangerous player on tour based off of the last 2 weeks? Yeah, sure. He's won the last 2 events. But if you look at Gannon's start, he finished 12th, 5th, 3rd, and 2nd. It's not like Gannon has fallen off or anything. And the 3rd and 2nd, he was close to winning those against Niklas. So I just think people are really, really quick on the trigger in the disc golf fan sphere, if you will.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, knee-jerk reactions is that's how we make our living out here in the media world. Shout out to Silas for fixing my timer there. Shout out to Brodie, great composure. Hunter, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, to think that Niklas can even be in the same conversation as Gannon currently is a little funny to me because Gannon Buhr did it for an entire season last year. And as Brodie pointed out, his worst finish so far this year was 12th. Outside of that, he's finished 3 weeks in a row in the top 5. Niklas, I think the argument can be made to compare Niklas's season to maybe like Anthony Barella last season, where at certain courses, Niklas is going to be very dangerous. But what Gannon Buhr promised or provided last year and is proving again this year, in my opinion, is he's dangerous every single week. So until we see that consistency from Niklas across an entire season, I'm not willing to put him or anybody for that matter on the same tier as Gannon Buhr. Gannon Buhr is my MPO Kristen Latt. I got corrected again. Apparently it's not let or lot, it's lat now, which I'm sure my southern accent people are going to come after me for that one too. But Gannon is my Kristen in MPO right now, where week in, week out, you have to put him in your top 3 because I think you'd be pretty dumb not to. And I think Niklas could get there. He has the potential to get there. But right now what we're seeing is I think it's a little bit more course to course. And when everything lines up, or when it's a tournament like MCO where it's going to bring a lot of people in my opinion, with the raised wind and the course wasn't that demanding, it was more landing zone shots, then yeah, Niklas is going to be a contender, but I don't think he is at or can even be mentioned in the same breath as Gannon Buhr currently.
Okay. All right. Mike, do you agree? Do you think it's more of a course-to-course situation?
Well, first, I love that we're able to have this conversation. And last year when people were complaining that we kept talking about what would happen if player of the year is player of the year, that I think it's good. I mean, if Stephen A. Smith can talk about LeBron and Jordan 5 out of the 7 days of the week, like, it's showing that media is actually interested in developing these storylines. But no, I mean, this is recency bias at its finest. Gannon's basically doing the same thing he did last year with just slight variance. I mean, he's only averaging 1 place lower than the entire year last year. He's averaging 5th instead of 4th. And Gannon's wins last year, they're not going to be sustainable. On his 9 wins, 6 of them were 2 strokes or less. So this is something that's not going to always fall his way. Average finish here is probably more what you want to look at. And even this year so far, Anttila is still averaging 16th with his 2 bigger finishes at 45th and 19th. So I think that we need to look bigger picture here. We need to look at the fact that while winning is obviously important, we know Gannon can win. And it's just going to be when he has such close – the fact he won 9 times last year makes it seem like it was absolute domination, which it was. But from a tournament to tournament basis, there were some very, very close calls. 1 throw here, 1 throw there. I think about Luke Humphreys, like 1 throw would have made him win. And Anttila had one where 1 throw would have made him win. So we can't just look at wins and that's it. And so unless Anttila continues this or even just getting some more top 10s instead of randomly throwing in a 40th or a 50th, I don't think they're in the same conversation.
Okay. Seems to be a consensus here. Jake, do you follow suit?
I do. And I want to give credit where credit is due. Niklas is probably, I'm not even going to say probably, I'm calling Niklas the best MPO player out of Europe right now. I think he's shown it. I think that says a lot about him and his level of talent. And I think he's right now the 2nd best player on tour. And I think that's what he's showing coming out of the gate. Now, I think putting together Hunter and Mike's points here, it's recency bias, and it's also there's a certain gene that I think Niklas, Anthony Barella, those guys are still developing, which is that clutch gene when it comes down to those those 1-stroke differences in the end, that sometimes it does go those guys' ways. It goes Niklas's way, it goes AB's way. But Gannon just seems to have it locked down so much better than almost anybody else right now. And maybe I'm not going to say better than anyone we've ever seen. I think Paul still has some better lock-in moments. But yeah, if we're looking since January 1st of last year, just in events that Gannon and Niklas have played together, Niklas has 7 finishes outside the top 25. Gannon has 0 outside of the top 15. I think there's a pretty big disparity still between these two players. And it's no diss at Niklas. I think, again, still the best player out of an entire continent. But Gannon just has something different, and he's going to show it later on.
Yeah. Gannon's consistency has definitely been there, no doubt. And obviously, he really heated up a little bit later into the season last year, too. So early in the year, it remains to be seen what will happen. But Niklas has certainly looked promising, and we will see if he can continue what he started with. All right. So hop into our next topic here. So one of the major storylines from the MCO was the protest from FPO competitor Abigail Wilson refusing to play the tournament alongside Natalie Ryan. Beliefs on this issue aside, do you believe the press this protest garnered was a net positive for the sport? Is any PR bad PR for a sport as desperate for eyeballs as disc golf? Hunter.
You know the old saying, all press is good press, and I've heard it a lot of different ways of, is that actually true? Is it not? I'm going to lean towards, yeah, I think that overall the press, the notoriety, the whatever you want to call it, the virality of this moment is a net positive for disc golf, although I'm not going to say it's a massive net one way or the other, because look, we're not going to act like there's nothing negative from this, right? Obviously, I think disc golf's being seen in a negative light in a lot of places. It's being seen in a negative light on a lot of TVs. But if you heard what I just said, it's being seen in a lot of places and being seen on a lot of TVs. So at the end of the day, it's getting us press that we can't get elsewhere. And if you look at the time our sport was seen in probably the most positive light on a national scale, which was the holy shot, people were still making fun of disc golf. So it's not like all of a sudden we can do something magical like the holy shot, get it on ESPN, get it on Pardon My Take, and all of a sudden the perception of our sport is going to be this buttoned up whatever. Because obviously right now disc golf is getting made fun of in certain instances, but this is gaining on just social media alone millions and millions of views and millions of eyeballs on the sport. That also, must I mention, is a sport that at once was being played by more people just a few years ago. That this might be a moment of, oh, you know what? I haven't touched my discs in a while. I might get back out there. So is it something where this in and of itself is providing positive impact and growth on the sport? It might be hard to tie to, but I think all press is good press when we're talking just strictly eyeballs on the sport.
All right. Mike, do you agree? All press, good press?
I'm just going to sit on the fence on this because I don't really think all press is good press in this instance, but I don't necessarily think it's bad either. And just thinking critically about this, like, I'm not sure what demographic of person is going to go check out fencing because a fencer kneeled and refused to fight. And they had it in the same story, Fox, I believe, as the disc golf one. And for me, I've never watched fencing other than the Olympics. I don't know if you can even watch fencing other than the Olympics. I don't know if this was something I can have a subscription to, but I have absolutely no intention of going and doing that. And so I don't know what demographic of person is going to decide to go disc golfing because of this. Now, Hunter made a good point. If it's someone that played during COVID and now kind of, life is happening and they forgot about it and maybe this reminds them, that I do think is possible. But that's kind of where it ends for me. I think that the different, like we brought up the holy shot, but the holy shot can be attributed and everyone can agree that there's no negative feelings you're going to get from that. Not a single person is going to be like, oh man, I don't like how that looks. I don't know how I feel about that. Whereas this is such a polarizing thing. You're already kind of knocking out one side of the demographic, most likely getting a bad taste in their mouth, or really both sides could be getting a bad taste in the mouth, depending on how they're looking at it. So I think, and all these views are great, but a lot of the people who are pushing the views, retweeting it, making comments about it, they're doing it just to reinforce their opinions on the matter rather than like pushing disc golf, right? So to me, I don't think this is really going to do anything unless you already were a part of disc golf. And with it being so polarizing, I just don't think really anything good will come from it.
Okay. Yeah, fair points. Jake, do you think that there's anything to gain from this or more to lose?
weirdly enough, think that there's actually a lot to gain from it. And I'm going to take Hunter's argument one step further here. Really just say that there's still a lot of people out there that don't know disc golf exists as a sport. They don't know there is a pro tour. They don't know that there is people out there who make a life or make a whole livelihood out of it. And I think the first step towards that is really just exposure, right? I happen to work in the tech community and the tech world, and you'd say there's definitely all press is good press in that sense, because you have startups out here trying to get people's attention every way, shape, or form about what they do and how they do it. They don't really care where the attention comes from. They're just trying to get eyeballs on what they do. Now, this might be a really complicated series of dominoes, and this might just be the first one here. But I think people just becoming aware of what disc golf is and that it exists and that there's a pro tour and that there's people whose livelihoods revolve around this. Hey, that could be the first domino where then a few months down the line, someone says, hey, you want to go check out disc golf with me? And they're like, you know what? People can make a livelihood. It's got to be pretty fun. Now, John Oliver's joke did make me laugh about throwing frisbees into an Alcatraz for rodents or whatever he said. That was a good joke, and everyone did laugh when he just said the words disc golf. I will say that. But again, that exposure, just that it's here, people are making a livelihood out of it. I think it's just really a good first step in a very hairy set of dominoes.
Yeah, we've definitely seen disc golf be the butt end of the joke a number of times. Bro, do you think there's anything actually to gain from this?
I mean, if you want to stretch it to Hunter's point, and someone watches John Oliver and they see the clip and they're like, oh, I haven't played disc golf in a while. Yeah, sure. How many people is that? I don't know. How many are those people going to continue to play it or going to amp up the amount of consumption they are playing or watching? I think very little. I think I agree with Mike in the sense of, like, if you look at it from our standpoint, think about how many stories you see throughout the day, whether it's on social media, on TV, or, in the news, that you aren't involved in. You might read a headline, you might look at it for a second, and then like 5 minutes later, you're going to the stuff that you care about. And I think that's how most people consume media. I don't think that's really going to move the needle at all. And when you think about what needs to happen for disc golf not to be the butt end of the joke, because that's really the big story here, is regardless of whether it's a good thing that happens in disc golf or a bad thing happens in disc golf, everyone will use disc golf as a joke, which I don't know if that's really where you want the sport to go. There's really two things that I can think of that changes people's opinions on something. One, how many people are watching. If you think about it, I'm going to go over my time here a little bit, so take some points over. If you think about it, there are people on TikTok that just start posting videos, and you'll look at that video, it's got 50 views, 1 like, and you're looking at it and being like, gosh, that's really cringy. Like that's really But if that same content, same exact person had 2 million likes with 10 million views, you might still think it's kind of cringy, but not as much. And also, that is how people kind of move, is like, oh, that person's got a big following, whatever. The other thing is money. If you can say that these people are making crazy amounts of money, I think the easiest way of looking at it is esports. Everyone thought esports was a joke. No one thought that was a real job. Everyone made fun of esports. Now they're making insane amount of money. It's a lot harder to kind of go that way. So to me, I think those are the two things that can really change people's perception. Unfortunately, that is the two things that will change people's perceptions on something. And until those two things change, I think disc golf will continue. I mean, just the fact of how John Oliver says it. I mean, he used the word as a punchline. Like he inflected the word. I think inflected is the right word, to make it a punchline.
Yeah.
The sport itself. Yeah. It's just not good. It's not good at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like a good example of this is if you look at darts, the sport of darts as it is, guys walking 10 feet away from a board and like some of them are really goofy looking and throwing these darts. It's kind of ridiculous looking. However, You stick them in these big auditoriums full of screaming fans with all this music pumped in and professional production, and all of a sudden darts looks sick, and you're like, wow, that's hype. Like, listen, the commentators are incredible. Like, everything surrounding it just pushes this hype like through the screen to where you can just feel it, and like that's something that elevates darts.
I think it's still okay to say like I don't like that or that's super lame, but still understand that like it's respectable to a big group of people.
Right. It comes across differently now, and like you're always going to have those people because, like, I mean, we had some clips from Worlds this past year go very viral, and like people would be commenting like, you know, there'd be galleries and people loud, and people would be like, oh, like people are seriously watching this. Like, there's always going to be that group, and you know. I don't think disc golf inherently on its own as a sport has to look super goofy. I think a lot of times it's just the environments we're playing in, maybe the lack of the crowd, maybe it's the attire certain players are wearing. Like, there are a lot of things. If you used AI and you put out the most professional looking version of disc golf as you could, I don't think disc golf as a sport on its own is what makes disc golf super goofy. Sure, it's a little unorthodox, but it's not ridiculous, right? We're throwing a disc pretty far, shaping it into a basket. Like, it's not that crazy. I think it's just a lot of the stuff that surrounds it, and that's just part of the process.
I think a big part is just the object we use is basically a frisbee.
Right, it's associated with just
frisbee
a catch
already has, you already have a like beach activity vibe around it.
Right.
So like it's similar. Like, I would be surprised if, I mean, I guess even bocce ball I could see getting more professional than disc golf. It's just, it is like at the end of the day, we're throwing frisbees in a park. And like, that's just, it's a tough one to get beyond that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just, if we're trying to get it mainstream, like, that's just going to be a tough, like a dartboard, at least it's like in every, you know, bar and half the restaurants you walk into to where like everyone's seen a dartboard and tried it and knows how hard it is. Disc golf, that's the big thing. It's just like, it looks easy.
But I think
it just looks simple.
I think cornhole is a perfect example of like darts, of where it's in a lot of those bar atmospheres. It's a game that people play at tailgates. You bring it to the beach. There are going to be tons of people that are going to think that being a professional cornhole player or bags player, whatever you want to call it, is super lame.
I say cornhole's in a similar boat there.
But the way they film it, the way it looks, the money, the pageantry, all that stuff that they do around it, you're not going to get as much pushback on it than disc golf is. And that's just the nature of it.
There is one thing that everything we're talking about, you know, bowling, darts, cornhole have in common, and it's the bowling shirts. So maybe disc golf jerseys need to go to bowling shirts. You know, the button up, the Terry Miller button up polos. That's the last thing we haven't tried. Maybe that's what's holding us back.
Point. Bowling shirts. I like that take.
Yeah. The bowling short literally just buttons from the bottom up. That's what's considered a bowling shirt.
A lot of times they got the like colors going down the sides also. The like red front, like, white under.
Is more of like, it's kind of like a blade
He's got like a storm going on it, you know?
Yeah, they are loud. There's no denying that. They're definitely loud. So maybe
that's the route. Maybe that's the route. We just let Double G start designing everyone's disc golf polos.
He would be the perfect guy to get the bowling jersey vibe. Absolutely. Double G style icon. All right. Next topic here. This one is very near and dear to my heart. Disc golf betting was once again officially offered on multiple sports books this weekend, splashing back into the disc golf, into the betting world. What pros and cons do you think this carries for the sport? If you see any severe risks, does the potential good outweigh them? Mike.
Well, I mean, other than what I mentioned before of having to deal with all my friends telling me all their bad beats, I am a big fan of this. I think that there are obviously some issues that could happen, whether it's shaving, throwing, like purposely throwing rounds and stuff. I mean, just recently it happened in the NBA. So someone got in trouble for purposely not hitting their lines and stuff. So to suggest it would never happen in disc golf is a little naive. But again, that's happening in every sport as long as they keep their eyes on it and pay attention to it. I think that they can handle that and minimize. But there's tons of benefits. And one, and for both different demographics too, I think that's the important thing. For people who are already watching disc golf, this is huge. I'm guilty of, if the lead card, the top two cards aren't people that I really enjoy watching, sometimes I don't finish watching coverage. But now, if I bet Paul finishing better than 10th and he's in 11th, I'm going to, hopefully he's on, but if he's not, I'm still going to be paying attention, watching in case they show him. So it's keeping people engaged for longer, which is huge. And I think that also, in addition to that, people who are kind of on the fence, if I'm scrolling around and I don't really watch tennis that much, I have, it's been on in my house before, but if I decide to bet on it, you bet I'm going to watch it. And so if people who don't know what disc golf is or never have really watched it, I don't know that this really does much, but it was mentioned that, there have been some instances where these betting platforms have let you watch the event within the app. And hey, man, if it's 1 a.m. and all my bets didn't hit from all my other sports, and I'm going to the next day and I just want to bet on something, and if I see ping pong, I might bet on it. So there might be somebody who decides to watch, especially if it's on the app and it lets you watch it. This could not only get people more interested in the revenue for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, which is another huge thing I didn't have time to mention, but it might get someone a little bit more interested. And, oh, wow, like people actually make money doing this and I get to make money doing it. Maybe it's something I can enjoy doing. So I think it's net positive by a long ways.
All right. Jake, are you in the same boat?
Definitely am. And yeah, it's hard to find, this demographic. It's pretty much just men between the ages of 18 and, 40, 50, whatever it is. I just love sports betting, right? And now that it's legal in a lot of places, they're looking for every chance to do it. My friend group and I, no exception really there. And we even went through a phase where when it was first legal, we were betting on Indian cricket. We had no idea what was going on, much to Mike's point. But we got to the point where we're like, oh man, Ramesh is going to have a good game this week. We know that we were knew things about it. Never watched a game in my life, but I knew what was going on somehow. It's going to get people engaged. People want to bet. People want to have a stake in sports. It's very hard to be watching a sport and not have a stake in it unless you've played it in the past and you can recognize that skill level. And betting is the way most people do that. I am going to take Mike's point as well of revenue as well for the disc golf community. We've talked a lot on this show about how there's just not enough money, right? There's just not enough in the sport. Is that bubble bursting? We don't really know yet. We should not be denying any stream of revenue if it's possible. Players are falling out of the tour. They can't afford it anymore. And that's a bummer. We want to see some of our favorite players make it on tour. We want to see people fight for it, but they don't really have that chance if they don't have the revenue stream. And so I think it's all around going to be a win.
All right. Shout out to Indian cricket betting. That's really funny. Brodie, what do you see in the future for this betting situation?
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit with Jake's Indian cricket betting there, just because cricket is the most popular sport in the world. And I think majority of people know that cricket exists and it is a massive sport. Maybe, I'd hand up, I haven't watched an entire game. I've watched parts of games, but I haven't watched an entire game. Disc golf might be, I'm going to lean more on Mike's side here of where people might see disc golf in there and be like, what is this? And have really no idea. So it might be a little bit different. I don't think we're going to get a bunch of people that, just want to place a bet because they want to place a bet and they're looking for something, they see disc golf. But I will say that I've already had a couple people reach out to me and say, hey, I normally watch Jomez, but because I place bets, I had to watch live. And so I think that is going to be probably the big thing here is you're going to see hopefully a bigger increase on the Jomez viewers coming over to watching it live, because no shot if you have a live bet going, are you going to wait to see if that bet hits the next day? It's just not happening. So I think that would be good for Disc Golf Network, getting more subscribers, maybe getting more advertisers on the live coverage side. I don't see really any cons here. I know Mike brought up the shaving and stuff. The way they have it for a lot of the bets, it's going to be really hard for players to do that. The other thing I do want to say of note, though, another way that the Disc Golf Pro Tour, the PDGA, whoever wants to utilize it, is majority of people watching disc golf are probably not looking at the scoreboard, the actual score, maybe at the very end of the tournament to see how people are doing. Now that they have bets, you better believe after round one, people were looking down the scores at all their players. Where are they? So can you implement some advertising now more in the scoring apps or whatever? Mm-hmm. Because now people are actually going to those to see during the rounds where their players are, who they're looking at. I mean, we'll talk about Edwin a little bit more, or I guess we talked about Edwin on Tour Life this week. Like he was going nuts on players that weren't even in contention. And I think that's the whole idea with the sports betting is you're focusing more on a bigger picture than just who's winning the tournament.
I can't imagine the increased traffic on the score apps. Also,
it's massive.
I think the final level of Jomez no spoiler alert people is people not checking their bank statements to make sure they don't spoil the Jomez for them.
Okay, I don't know if my bet hit.
It's like, what do you mean we have an extra $100? I told you not to look in there. That means Paul wins. Like that'll be the next step. There's always a spoiler somewhere. Hunter, what are your thoughts?
Look, I definitely think there's a lot of pros to it. I think most of them have been hit, especially the DGN. There's monetization from the actual betting side, right? There is some that comes from that, but I think Brodie's point, the biggest monetization, at least short term, from my understanding, is more so the increased live attraction and live engagement, where there is a reason for people to watch, and there's also a reason for people to watch even when it's a blowout, because even if someone's winning by 10, well, I'm caring a lot about, is Calvin Heimberg staying under that 6.5? You better not be shooting too hot right now, boy. You know what I mean? The other pro I wanted to touch on before I get into some cons, since not many people mentioned cons, is as far as stumbling on to disc golf in the app and all of a sudden you want to bet on it. Yeah, I agree. That's going to be a tough stretch. But if you think to the Super Bowl, every year I throw a Super Bowl party, and every year people are coming over to the Super Bowl party to watch said event. And I'm like, oh, if you deposit $5, you can throw $5 on this game, get some bonus bets, whatever. And all of a sudden they're invested in something when these are people that are not football fans. It's a similar thing, I think, of, disc golf's on and I have a lot of friends over and we end up watching disc golf. And now all of a sudden I can tell those friends, hey, you can throw some money on it. And now you're invested in something you weren't invested in before. I think that that's a very, very niche, but it is another pro. Cons, number one, obviously pros betting on themselves. They don't have to bet that much money to make more than their payout. Luckily, with the finishing places and stuff like that, I think it's hard to do. The other con I think we have to talk about, that if it hasn't already happened, is the social side for the players, where there's going to be players that throw OB on 18 and blow someone's parlay that was a 7-leg parlay that was going to pay off their kid's college, and all of a sudden they think Calvin Heimberg, sorry Calvin, is solely responsible for that. And some players are going to handle that better than others. I think that is something that just comes with the lay of the land, but that is definitely a big con to the betting atmosphere that disc golfers might not be ready for.
Rebuttal.
Send it.
First off, that's not a con, that's a pro. Like now we're going to see players under more pressure than we have before. Who gives, again, at the end of the day, who gives a rip what the players think? If it's going to make a more enjoyable viewing experience and players are going to react and actually show emotion more because of this, I think that's a pro for across the board. And then also I got to say, you just compared the biggest sporting event in the United States to a disc golf tournament. Yeah. You did. I got to push back there.
No, because I think that what I'm saying is it's a much less of a jump for friends of someone who's interested in disc golf to get into betting. Similar to, I have friends who are more into disc golf than into football, yet they will still bet the Super Bowl because they're coming over and it's a whole thing where we're all getting together, we're all watching it, and they will get into it. So I think that's something where I could definitely see some of my best friends who do not care when disc golf's on. They come over, we're all hanging out on a Saturday, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, Hunter, what do you like on the table?" I'm like, "Oh, if you take the Calvin Heimberg under tomorrow, guaranteed hit." Whatever.
I see what you're saying.
They're interested in disc golf tomorrow.
Yeah, what I thought you were grab fans in.
What I thought you were saying is you were going to basically, because the Super Bowl, you're bringing people over. Like Silas is a perfect example, right? Silas, I believe, does not really watch football on Sundays. If I had to guess, I don't think he's sitting down watching football. My guess would be
we can say Silas is not. Yeah, sure.
Is he from Canada?
What is Silas saying? Is he watch football on Sundays? Trevor?
On occasion.
Does he say that? Did he say that?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. But we can all agree there's a lot of people that watch the Super Bowl that probably don't really watch every week.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that you're going to bring someone in that doesn't watch disc golf ever to want to watch disc golf. Now, if you're coming over and you're having a poker night and that's why people are coming over because of poker night, or you're coming over because you're all going to play Halo together and then disc golf is on, I could see that. But asking your friends who are not disc golfers, who know you play disc golf, who don't care about disc golf, have probably told you, stop asking me to come play disc golf. that they're going to come over to watch disc golf and bet on disc golf, I think that's a 0 out of 10. But
I just think it's more likely for me to shoot my friends a text and be like, yo, you
want to
pick
come
these
over and
three
watch
players.
disc golf?
No, pick these 3 players, the over and these 2 unders. It's like a guaranteed hit for them to then want to watch it on Sunday versus I'm like, yo, there's this sick disc golf tournament going on Sunday. Y'all just want to come watch?
Sure.
Like,
sure.
I think
for
that
your
is
gambling,
a way.
for your gambling friends.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that is a way that is at least a little bit of a pro when it comes to gambling. Is like, it is going to be easier for those people to get into the sport because now they have something to make them care. Before there was no reason to care who was on.
March Madness brackets is a perfect example.
Exactly.
I think
How many people fill that out?
The brackets have done an incredible job for the
we're not going to be
viewership.
bringing in hundreds of thousands of people, but when you combine that with the Fox News coverage, I mean, we're growing by like 50 people right now. So
also
trending up.
Go Gators.
Go Gators. Shout out.
Only school ever to win 3 football national championships and 3 basketball national championships.
Yeah, I saw that stat.
Wow. Yeah, powerhouse
and
school.
How many Ultimate Frisbee?
Just 2, unfortunately.
Got a few.
They got to win a third.
Baseball as well.
They could complete the Rubik's Cube. The 3x3.
Haven't been close since 2010, unfortunately.
You got any eligibility left? Go back and win the third one.
Coach. Dream team.
Yeah, you might have to go back.
Imagine the recruiting if you went back and you said, I want the best. I want the very best. You can make a documentary out of that.
You just take all the kids that don't make the basketball or football team. That's what you take.
You just be standing there after football walk-on tryouts.
Yeah. All right. You come here. Hey, you come here.
Let me teach you a little something called a hammer.
Hey, let me change your life with this game called Ultimate Frisbee.
Yeah. Are you ready to pay $6,000 a year to play the game of your life?
You're gonna love it.
Spirit fingers.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Last topic here for the final topic. This is a fan submitted topic. So this fan said, with all the different tier events, 2, 3, 4, and 5-day events, multiple tournaments, and rankings and point systems, is disc golf too confusing for the casual fan to follow? Does the model need to be simplified? So, is there too much on the table for all these fans that could be coming in from the Fox News article? Jake?
I don't think the tournaments are really that hard to follow, to be honest. You look up the Disc Golf Pro Tour schedule, it pops right up at the top. If you do marketing for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, please note that it's all in lowercase. There is no uppercase in Disc Golf Pro Tour schedule. Just a side note. But you pop it open. There's every weekend where the broadcast schedule is how to watch it, what's going on. I think that's pretty simple to follow. Where I think this question has some validity is definitely in the rankings and the point systems, because you have a lot of different sites that track things like that. There's obviously UDisc, there's Statmando, there's the PDGA themselves. And I think some quick Google searches here will tell you exactly where to find the PDGA rankings that will actually matter for a tournament or two down the line. But again, a tournament or two down the line. Does it really come into play until the playoffs? Maybe. Not really. And I think if you're a casual watcher, you'll start to pick up on who the top players are, who the people are that are going to make some of these final tournaments and really make a name for themselves. I don't think it's too difficult. I think if anything, we've made it a little bit easier as we've gotten more resources and more power. The standings is really the only time I think maybe even I get a little confused on which one we're looking at and how this number came to be. Is it the best way to measure? We've had that conversation here. That's why you guys did the grip locked power rankings, is really just off the eyeball test. Who's doing well, who's not. But yeah, that's my thought on it. I think the schedule is easy to follow. The standings get a little trickier. Yeah. But for a casual fan, they'll find what they want to find, which is casual viewing of the Pro Tour.
Fair enough. The internet is a good tool. Bro, do you think there's too much on the table, or is it pretty easy to absorb?
Well, I think a lot of sports struggle with this. I think a lot of sports are actually kind of confusing to the general fan, if you will. I remember watching back. I think college football has corrected it now, but back in the day, depending on whether you're on ESPN, CBS, depending on where you went, people's rankings were different because some was using like BCS, some was using AP, some was using coaches poll. So you'd be thinking you're in a 2 versus 5 game, and all of a sudden it's like actually the 3 versus the 6 or something. You're like, what's going on? But I think what other sports do really well is that when it is important and it's like the really, really big stuff, they do a great job of making it digestible for you. One thing that stands out to me is for the NFL. I still, if you ask me, hey, what division is this person in? What conference is this team in? It might take me a second, and I might even be wrong. But when it comes down to the playoff picture, I think the NFL does a great job with the graphics of showing you exactly these are the teams that have buys because they won their conference or they won their division, and these are the wild cards. They do a great job of that. I think golf also, if you really want to look into it, like no one has any idea how some of these people qualify for tournaments. No one really has. There's so much that goes into golf that you have no idea. But the big picture stuff we know. To me, I think the one thing that disc golf really needs to lock in, how many rounds are a tournament and cuts. Those two things need to be locked in, I think, so they're consistent product week in and week out. And it's not ever changing. And you're having to ask yourself, is there a cut? Is there a cut? Are you playing 3 rounds, 4 rounds, 5 rounds? That's the one thing that's pretty consistent across the board in golf, football, basketball. It's a very digestible product that you know what you're going to get.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree.
Are you saying it should be standardized across the board, or just tournament by tournament needs to be standardized?
No, I think if you go to a tournament, I think with disc golf, 4 rounds, a cut after 2, and just lock it in.
For every tournament.
Yep.
All right. Hunter, what do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you think disc golf needs to be simplified a little more?
Well, I think first off, I think disc golf is moving in that direction. First off, we talked about different tier events. Right now, there's really 2 tiers. There is the Pro Tour and the Major. They've already, I mean, there's still European silver events, but I'm even too casual to understand that. So really, we got Pro Tour and Majors. Now they got rid of the silver events. That's great. The Q Series, similar to Korn Ferry Tour, we don't really talk about it. So I think that's already working. 2, 3, 4, and 5 day events. 2-day events only happen when there's weather. So I don't know why that's really a consideration. 3-day events is standard. 4 days events plus 5-day events, really just worlds. I agree with Brodie. I think consolidating it to 4. But at the end of the day, if I'm a casual fan, I can see the leaderboard and I know what it means. And so like, that's really how simple it is. If you look at a casual fan, what they have to understand a sport like football or hockey, I mean, sitting next to like my wife or my mom watching a football game, I have to explain way more than if I'm sitting next to them watching a disc golf tournament, because it's pretty simple. The score, how far under par, where are they at on the leaderboard. Also an important note when it comes to rankings and pointing system, if they're a casual fan, they're probably going straight to the source, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, because that's where you have to watch it. Jomez is owned by the Pro Tour, and they're all using the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. So a casual fan isn't really falling into finding the ratings, finding the PDGA rankings, finding Statmando. We all find all that stuff. But if I'm a casual fan, I'm looking at the Pro Tour's website, I might be looking at DGN, and I'm looking at Jomez, and all of those are using the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. Or if they're pulling something else, they're explaining to you, this is the highest rated round, blah, 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 whatever it might be. So I don't think all of that stuff is too confusing for a casual fan. I do agree, though, that the days would be great to be locked in.
Okay. Mike, what do you have left to add?
Yeah, I love that point Hunter made, because I think the beauty of golf, disc golf, is on its face how simple it is. Like, everyone can tell what you're trying to do. Trying to explain to my wife what icing is when I'm watching hockey, no chance. But she doesn't have to ask me any questions when we watch disc golf, because she knows, she's seen it. But a friend who's never watched it, they're like, oh, it's like golf. They take the thing and they throw it in the thing. So this question kind of confuses me. The fact that it mentions tiered events and 2-day events, I feel like the fan was coming from a point of all like local stuff, PDGA stuff, like, and so, I think that's where the confusion is. If we're just talking Pro Tour, I think it's pretty simple. But if this person's getting confused because there's A tiers, B tiers, C tiers, I mean, that's just going to be how it is. I mean, there's hundreds of different formats of golf tournaments at my local country club, and there's scrambles, there's shotgun starts, there's so many different things. So if we're talking just Pro Tour, I don't think this question really has that much merit, because if you're truly a casual fan, I mean, a casual fan's just going to watch and see who's winning, right? If you are even interested in the rankings and the point systems, I think you're already past being somewhat casual, and you're going to start learning and understanding. And it's a relatively simple standings and point system, to be honest, especially compared to some other sports. The last point is, I think the one thing that I would have is, I still don't see the point of Elite and Elite Plus. Like, just people have already said it. Move everything to 4 rounds, cut after 2, maybe 3 if I need people to get their money's worth for coming to a tournament and donating to the top players. Let them play 3 rounds instead of 2. But in general, I think it's relatively straightforward.
Yeah, and I think there is there is something beautiful about the game of golf and the simplicity, right? Once you understand what the target is and that they're trying to get there, it's really straightforward. And I also think it sets it up to where the casual viewer, the wife sitting next to you, can understand what's going on. But then somebody who is intrigued, you may have just enough things to send them down a Google trail. And that's where you want to really send an interested fan at the end of the day. It's not a bad thing for somebody watching the PGA Tour to see the words FedEx Cup or see the FedEx Cup rankings and go, what's that? And then Google it and then get caught in that Google trail in that sport. That's honestly, in disc golf, that's how we capture people at the end of the day, is getting them into disc golf YouTube, getting them to be learning through the internet about the sport of disc golf. Hey, now this is where I can buy this. This is where I can do this. Oh, here's my local courses. Like that's a great net to catch people in. So I think it's good to be something that can be absorbed. But you know what? If there's a little confusion about the point standings, or even, hey, why does this event have 3 rounds when the other one I watched last weekend has 4? It's not frustrating. Just Google search and it's going to send them down a trail that might be productive anyways. Now they're on the Pro Tour website.
What I will say is,
no, you go ahead.
In relation to what Trevor was just saying, one thing that I think is very undervalued in when the Pro Tour's scoring was on UDisc was like, if someone was like, oh, how do I follow the scores here? Like, oh, you download this app called UDisc for live scoring. Mm-hmm. They also just happen to download the course directory for their everywhere near them. And I think that, is that a huge population of people? Obviously not, but I do think it's good for the engaged disc golf community to have been going to the spot where they also have to go to look up where events are happening, where disc golf scene, and have that app on their phone. Obviously, I know that that's not the reason it went away, but I think that is something that's overlooked a lot. Of like, we at that time were forcing any engaged disc golf viewer that wanted to care about live sports to download the app that also kept you engaged in disc golf in a lot of ways. Whereas now it's just like, you go to PDGA's website or the PDGA Live, and it's not really useful unless you're playing a tournament.
I was just going to add that I think we might be only a couple years away from actually having a complete separation of the amateur game to the pro game, because I think to add on to Mike's point, I think this person was probably going that way and going like, hey, there's so many different events. Yeah. And I think when we first started doing podcasting with disc golf and everything, I think so many we had to always say, guys, we're only talking about the Pro Tour right now.
Right.
Like we're not saying this needs to happen at your local, which if you watch really any other podcast about sports, I mean, when you turn on ESPN, they don't ever talk about local scene. They don't ever talk about the amateur game. They don't ever talk about any of that stuff. And I think that's what we do here too. We very rarely ever talk about the amateur scene, but because of where disc golf was a few years ago, I think everyone feels like connected and feels like, oh, they're talking about me if they're talking about disc golf. So I think we're only a few more years from now to where everyone will see like, oh, there is a huge divide. Like, yeah, we both play disc golf, but that is that and that is this.
Yeah.
Where I think there's maybe some of the new people coming in might not have that just yet.
If that casual fan did somehow stumble on the PDGA and was trying to look at that as their schedule of Pro Tour events, then yeah, they're gonna just be confused. Like, there's a Pro Tour event happening in my backyard, the Mary Sunshine House Classic. I'm gonna go down there and just show up to a C tier and be like, where's Paul McBeth?
That's funny.
That actually would be awesome.
That is a great one.
That might have to be a punishment.
You have to go spectate like a random.
One of you two have to go like show up to a C tier and act like you're expecting it to be a Pro Tour. Bring like a sign and everything.
It's a good time.
And then end up just following lead card.
Start asking people like, what time does lead card go off?
Yeah. And then you actually have to go spectate lead card.
And like clap and everything.
You got to get autographs.
Got to get autographs after the round. Photos.
Honestly, unless it's like the dead of winter at like some rando course. All right, we got 3 people tied at 15 here. So tiebreaker. Whoever the 2 closest here are gonna get to move on. You have to tell me in which place did Alden Harris finish at the MCO?
Oh, this guy. You always use Olin Harris.
27th.
You used Olin Harris last time.
Did I?
No,
Yes.
it was.
I don't think it
Wasn't
was.
it?
I thought it was
Dale?
Olin. I thought
it
he
was
used
Corey
Olin
Ellis or
both
something.
times.
Maybe. I really just look for finishing places that look a little sneaky.
That's what
or
I'm saying. I
maybe,
think Olin Harris is very sneaky.
Somebody like he was sneaky because he kind of played well the first round. It's like, did he stay up there? What was your guess, Mike?
27th.
27th,
I'm gonna just say 20th.
20th,
I'll go the opposite direction, say 38.
41st.
Wow, he
Jake
dropped.
and Mike are in.
What did he shoot first round?
It was pretty steaming. I think he was like double digits?
Good news is I think he was your dark horse
Crazy.
pick.
Why is that good news?
That's not good.
Because that
news. He
means
finished
Bradley Williams
44.
had to have beat him, so I get some points.
Oh, it wasn't. It was round 2. So he shot even 9 under and then went 5 over in his final round.
It's tough.
And considering how bunched in things
Final
were,
round
yeah,
was the easiest round.
Yeah, he kind of choked because Bradley Williams shot 9 under, so you just needed to shoot 1 under for the other 2 rounds for me to beat you on that one. Flashes of brilliance. Okay, so for this final topic, it's not super long-winded. So the way we'll do this is you guys just give your argument, and I'll just tell you at the end who's the more convincing. We won't worry about the points. Jake, you did get closest there, so you can decide if you want to go first or second.
I'm going to go second.
Very interesting play. Very interesting play. All right. Here's the topic. Once again, we'll have them each go, and whoever convinces me the most will be the winner today. So a new disc golf video game has just been announced. Disc Golf Masters, I believe it's called. And it looks like it could be the most polished one yet. Give me the player and the moment captured that would make the best cover. Your goal is to sell as many copies specifically to disc golfers as you can. Keep in mind this would be a 2025 game, so keep in theme with other sports games. The moment should probably be somewhat recent. So I'm a pretty big sports game aficionado, and so I'm looking for that moment that I'm going to walk past the cover and be like, ooh, man, I've got to get my hands on that. That looks epic. So, Mike, paint the picture for me. I'm going to get in visualization mode.
Well, if I was going second, and my backup was going to be Big Con when he broke 86, when he tapped that putt in. But I can go with my tier 1. So sorry, Con. Okay, so I know you said somewhat recent, but I don't think this game's going to come out every year. So I feel like I get a little bit of spread out of a couple of years here and there. So I'm actually going to take an idea from the most recent college football game. They had 3 players on it. So I'm going to put 3 players on mine.
Okay.
And it's going to reach a wide demographic, because if this game really is good, we're going to have new people, young people playing it. We're going to have the OGs being interested in wanting to play it. So I got to touch everybody. So the first thing I'm going to do is easy, holy shot. Right when it goes in, hands up. If you know what disc golf is, you know what it is. Like, he does not throwing it. So it's not. If you know disc golf and you're excited about disc golf, you're going to see that. It's the most iconic moment of all time. It has to be on there. Second one is going to be Kristen, just because she's probably the most dominant. You could argue she's the face of disc golf right now. So Kristen, and I'm going to have her doing an action shot with her perfect form, probably a backhand. And then my sleeper to get those OGs, and because it's the most epic picture in disc golf history, it's going to be Greg Barsby winning in 2022, standing on top of the basket, holding the sword, screaming, because it's the most epic picture. And all the OGs love Greg Barsby. So it's going to get all the 30, 40, 50-year-olds wanting to play the game too.
I appreciate the effort, but that's an ice cold cover. No, straight to the GameStop. All right, Jake, what did you have for me?
Pissed off that I went second. I didn't think you were going to think of Barsby, Mike. I didn't think you were going to think of that picture.
Way.
I'm so mad
Trevor,
at you right
put
now.
both these people in the finals. This is on you.
The fact that you got to pick 3 people, I'm like, what are the odds one of them's Barsby? All right, so I'm going to go with my plan B, which I don't know if it's going to be nearly as good here, but I'm going to try. I'm going to make a case here for it. I know we said specifically disc golfers we want to sell to, but let's talk about everything we've talked about today. We need more money. We need betting. We need more just eyes on disc golf, right? Who better than one of the top pitchers in the MLB right now, Dylan Cease, playing in the Celebrity All-Star game? Who better to be on the cover of a video game? Sure, he doesn't play the sport, but why not? Let's take people from outside the sport and put them on the cover. Yeah, why not?
Hunter, can you give me a pick?
Yes, please. This is my pick right
can
here.
I come in?
PDGA.
My pick.
Yeah,
No, that's
all right,
not-
Hunter, you win.
All you
Here's
gotta
what
do
we'll
is
say.
add Disc Golf Pro Tour
The
2025.
other pick
Ball
is
McBeth.
the Simon Lizotte point at Des Moines.
Ooh.
At Des Moines,
Here's
winning in the
what I will say.
playoffs.
That one, the
my third
USDGC
pick-
one is not recent enough.
No.
Simon Lizotte
Well, I
point.
had reason for it. May I have my reason?
Yes.
Because this is the first time it's come out in 2025. The majority of players got in around COVID. They would have seen that picture or the holy shot, which Mike would have brought up. I think if Mike would have sat on the holy shot, you could have made an argument there. Barsby's a wild pick.
Barsby's tough. Barsby's
a wild pick. But my
That's
secondary
what he
pick, if you
wins.
That's what it's
said recency, I was gonna say when Ricky Wysocki turned around and flexed at Anthony Barella at chess.com 2 years ago or last year. He went on to lose the event, but putting Ricky as the cover athlete in that flex pose, I think that also works. But my number one pick, that's the most ice cold disc golf picture of all time.
Jake, you have to
It
know that
deserves a
that's
cover
like
auto.
the most disrespectful thing ever is, hey, there's no one big enough in our sport to put on the cover. So let's put someone on the cover that doesn't even play disc golf.
How much money do you want to make in disc golf?
Yes,
That
that would
already
have been
looks like a cover.
That is a sick cover, but like I would have wanted that to be the cover for the 2022 game.
Well, your option are that or Barsby.
or
you
Dylan
choose.
Cease. Hey, in Dylan Cease's defense, people will think it's MLB The Show, and they will buy the game.
Yeah, and
You
then
said you're
be
trying to sell
pissed
two
off.
disc golfers. Your
And then
words,
be
not mine,
super
Trev.
pissed off.
We've been looking at this the wrong
you said
way.
it's to sell specifically to disc golfers. Your
So
question, not mine.
we need to bamboozle
But
people
it also
into
said an
purchasing
athlete.
disc golf.
My other competitor picked 3 athletes. I decided to go outside the box as
Well,
well.
why
You were
not pick
going
the game?
Barsby.
Pick the Game of
You
Thrones
can't win if you're
person
going
while we're
Barsby.
at it.
Stylist wins.
Okay, let's pick him
Stylist
too.
wins.
And Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Let me
there
get
you go.
Andrew Zimmern from Discovery's food show.
All right,
Alright.
fine.
That is the
Fine.
most. That might
Final
have been the
answer.
most infamous segment that will go down in debate
Final
night.
That was
answer.
terrible. That was terrible.
Never
Let's
mind,
get
I'm not gonna say
Matteo
what to
doing
say.
his double point. You
I
know,
think-
when he
I think
wins.
if someone
Does
just-
that.
There you
Yeah,
go, Jake.
let's get him doing that.
I think if
That's
someone
great.
tuned in at the answers and didn't hear the question, it might have been the worst Mount Rushmore for the cover of a disc golf game.
I want to
Holy
hear.
shot, I think, was the best answer in there.
What was?
The holy shot.
Yeah, but it's not recent enough.
Well, but again,
listen,
game
I
was
wrote the
2025,
question.
selling to disc golfers. Everyone who's in the sport right now would have got in around the holy shot.
Yes, I understand.
Do the Chris guitar with
approaching
Ella Hansen in the background crying and holding like
approaching it from
hugging
like
everyone.
a severely logical standpoint. That's where you would arrive. I get that. I was looking more of like if it, like ignore. I guess maybe the theme of disc golf, and it's like if you were in charge of making this cover the same way they make the Madden cover, the 2K cover, like
Well,
basically.
but even when NCAA football was coming out, there's a lot of arguments that it should have been all the Heismans from the years that they didn't have
was
the
it,
game.
Hunt?
It wasn't, but they, a lot of arguments.
Correct.
A lot of arguments. Would they have sold
Um,
more? Actually, third argument: covers
It
don't
was like
matter
the
anymore.
highest selling video game in a long time.
Yeah, covers don't matter anymore. Third
It's
argument.
true. Covers don't matter.
So put
and-
Barsby on it. You know.
All right. I want to hear comment down below who you think wins. I give up. And comment down below. Give me a 2024 season moment.
I
that
gave you
you think
mine.
would make a
Ricky
good cover.
Wysocki flexing because you got to have
He
Ricky's
lost.
face on there. We're trying to
Hunter,
sell as many
you're out of
copies
this,
as you
man.
want. You got to get Ricky or Paul on there.
I'm trying to
You're
get
the
my
one
win
who
here.
said your goal is to sell as many copies specifically to disc golfers as you can. I can't put
Yeah.
Niklas Anttila in the cowboy hat.
Or
It's not
like
gonna sell.
or like Isaac.
Yeah, it's not going to sell. I got to
Not
put
gonna
Ricky or
sell as
Paul on
much.
it.
Well, see, but,
Ricky, Paul, or
but I
Simon.
said specifically to
Matteo?
disc golfers, though. Like that, all the disc golfers they do know about Isaac. Like,
Not all.
I mean, if we're talking the people that disc golfers are going to like, it's Matteo and Simon Lizotte that are going to sell. That's everybody's going to like them.
fair enough.
That's the
All right.
PDGA or that whatever it was survey that went out. Aren't they the top MPO players? Whatever.
Something like that. This has been Debate Night, your favorite show. If you want to submit some topics, you can scan the QR code on the screen, throw them in there, leave your takes in the comments down below.
I
Was
feel
too-
dumber than I
Was
was.
I
when
too
and I
cool?
feel so dumb.
Well, the tough
But
part
was
for
this-
you, Brodie, is you weren't even close to making the finals.
That's fine.
You're standing on the
I
outside.
told Trevor to take away points, so it's fine.
All right. Anywho, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.